How's it going, guys? This is Riley from Nerd Network coming back at you with another top 10 list. Before we get started, just wanted to remind you to like, comment, and subscribe so that you can stick with us as we upload brand new gameplays, podcasts, and top 10 videos. This week we're covering Spider-Man themed content in celebration of the release of the new Spider-Man PS4 exclusive title, so let's get started. Getting his start in Marvel Comics' Amazing Fantasy number 15, Spider-Man is known the world over as the top web-slinging hero, and arguably Marvel Comics' most recognizable superhero. His red and blue tights, which has been his go-to crime-fighting getup for the past 55 years, gives him one of the most iconic looks in all of pop culture history. However, the web-slinger has been known to have a wardrobe change every once in a while. Be it an alternate reality, time travel, or the desire to sell more action figures, Spidey has had a number of badass suits. This is our top 10 list of the top Spider-Man suits of all time. Number 10. SpiderMan Noir. From a series of comics that Marvel released putting their iconic characters into a gritty 1930s pulp setting, Spider-Man Noir had much in common with his main Marvel Universe counterpart. Driven to seek vengeance after the murder of his Uncle Ben, tenacious reporter Peter Parker uses his newfound spider abilities and 2 guns to hunt down crime lord Norman Osborn. Reflecting this universe's darker and more grounded tone, this suit seems slick and cobbled together at the same time. With an emphasis on stealth, the suit is all black, with aviator goggles that help Peter see through smoke and increase his vision in the dark. He also has a long trench coat, which in most panels makes Spider-Man Noir very reminiscent of Batman, which matches his more brutal method of dealing with the criminal element in 1930s New York. This Spider-Man has widespread appearances in many other comic crossovers and has appeared in other media outside of the comics as well. Its most notable appearance is in the upcoming Edge of the Spider-Verse animated film, where Spider-Man Noir is voiced by actor Nicolas Cage. We'll see how that goes. Regardless, this period piece costume is mysterious and just plain badass, being an ideal crossover of Spider-Man and, say, the dark gritty tone of the DC Cinematic Universe. Number 9. SpiderCarnage. This costume, which most Spider-Man fans would recognize from the 90s Fox Kids animated series, appeared in the comics during the Web of Carnage storyline. This actually took place during a time when Spider-Man was not Peter Parker, but in fact his clone Ben Reilly, who not only changed his appearance to differentiate himself from the other Spider-Man, but was convinced that he in fact was the real Peter Parker. Yeah, 90s comics were kinda weird. But while many fans' opinions were split on Peter being replaced by Ben Reilly, no one could deny that the new costume he got was amazing, and when you add on being bonded to the Carnage symbiote, you enter full-on badass territory. In the animated series, this concept of Carnage bonding with Spider-Man was expanded on when the symbiote bonds with another universe's Peter Parker and drives him insane, unhinging his mind to the point that his only goal is the destruction of all other realities. Not only does SpiderCarnage possess all the normal abilities of Spider-Man, but while being bonded to the symbiote, Ben Reilly's physical abilities, such as agility and strength, are not only increased, but he can also possess the ability to create organic constructs such as blades and claws using the symbiote's form. This makes SpiderCarnage a formidable adversary, which is only compounded by his unpredictability due to his unhinged psyche. Number 8. Superior Spider-Man. Arguably the most interesting thing to happen to Spider-Man's character in the past decade was when, under the writing of Dan Slott, Otto Octavius, better known as Spider-Man's mortal enemy, Dr. Octopus, switched minds with Peter Parker and for a time became Spider-Man. While learning his new abilities and how to navigate Peter's mind, Otto deduced that to become a better Spider-Man, he needed to use his technological expertise to overhaul his spider suit. After a few prior iterations, Otto eventually reached a point where his suit was jam-packed with a number of technological gadgets that heightened his ability to fight crime. This suit had cybernetic spider limbs that came from the back of the suit to increase agility, traversal speed, and allowing this Spider-Man to multitask and take on multiple adversaries at once. It was also equipped with claws that would release nanobots to track enemies or inflict paralyzing venom. As if that wasn't enough, Otto brought back the spider wings, which allowed greater mobility and gliding. The change of blue to black, as well as the narrowed eyes and haphazard web pattern on the suit, also gave it an edgy look, which, like with Spider-Man Noir, helped to emphasize Superior Spider-Man's more brutal approach to crime fighting. Number 7. Kane's Scarlet Spider costume. As if having one Peter Parker clone running around wasn't enough, there was actually another prominent clone that emerged during the 90s clone saga. This character, first introduced as an adversary to both Peter and Ben Reilly, was Kane. Being created prior to Ben Reilly, Kane's genetic makeup was unstable, giving him a large scar over his face, as well as affecting his mind in a way that partially drove him mad. Like I said, 90s comics. Wild time. Anyway, after a long absence from comics, Kane eventually came back and made his return, as a new version of the Scarlet Spider, who operated as a hero at the same time as Spider-Man. Because of this, Kane created his own identity and costume, while still paying homage to his connection to Peter Parker. This suit is nearly a reversal of the superior Spider-Man costume, as it is primarily red with a few blocked out areas of black. This costume, however, is simplified in the respect that it does not have the webbing pattern common to most other Spider-Man suits. This reflects Kane's heavier focus on hand-to-hand combat as opposed to web slinging. While as the Scarlet Spider, Kane was involved in a number of crossovers, including Marvel's Spider-Verse event, which saw a crossover of a number of different Spider-Men from different realities. He even got his own solo series for a time. But the newest return of Ben Reilly, who originally died at the end of the 1990s Clone Saga, spoiler alert, has somewhat complicated his role as the Scarlet Spider, and because of this, somewhat reduced Kane's appearances in the comic books. Number 6. The Stealth Suit. While Spidey has had a great number of costumes that focus primarily on keeping a low profile, this one specifically blends stealth technology with a cool look. First appearing at the beginning of Dan Slott's run during an arc called Spider-Man Big Time, the stealth suit uses light-bending tech to appear nearly invisible if needed. It also has sound-dampening microfibers that allow Spidey to swing and crawl undetected, allowing him to get the drop on his adversaries. Later, the suit had the capability to change colors, though the default appearance was all black with green neon that would appear in the form of a giant spider on the chest and back of the costume, as well as covering the eyes. After being used by Peter to combat the Hobgoblin, he later gifted the suit to Kane, where it became the base for his Scarlet Spider suit that we just covered. For being a suit that matches great functionality with a great look, the stealth suit definitely earns its spot on this list. Number 5. Ben Reilly's Scarlet Spider suit. Now this can probably be considered a somewhat unpopular opinion, as many people think this next one is one of the worst Spider-Man suits. The animosity toward it can most likely be attributed to, as I mentioned before, comic fans being so split in their opinions on the Clone Saga storyline. Either that or the fact that it is basically a morph suit with a hoodie over it. But thinking about it, that's kind of what makes this suit so great. It's homemade, it's something we hadn't seen before in the Spider-Man comics, and sure, in the movie adaptation, Tobey Maguire starts off with a similar costume when he enters the wrestling ring, but up to that point, we hadn't seen an improvised costume that actually looks somewhat like Spider-Man. I mean, Peter Parker just starts off with a web or net or something like that over his face. So as I've mentioned before, web shooters on the outside of the costume are awesome. This costume has some street smarts, and looks like a more realistic version of what a broke crime fighter could put together on such a short notice. And, as I mentioned earlier, this is also more than a little influenced by the character beneath the costume. Number 4. The Future Foundation suit. The Future Foundation was an idea put together originally by Jonathan Hickman during his run on the Fantastic Four. Put together by Reed Richards, or Mr. Fantastic himself, was an idea to bring together some of the smartest minds in the Marvel Universe in order to solve the world's major problems. As you can expect, Peter Parker found himself on this list and was inducted into the Future Foundation. Along with access to new technological resources, Peter also found himself gaining a new costume. This costume was put together with unstable molecules that meant that the costume never got dirty and could transform into either his street clothes or his original red and blue costume at a moment's notice. Despite this, the default look of being all white with a large black spider on the front and black eyes, almost reminiscent of a negative version of the black suit Spider-Man, was really unique and graphically just looked amazing. Peter would continue to wear this costume after the death of Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, in which, in his last will and testament, he asked Peter to become part of the Fantastic Four and continue the legacy of crime fighting, which, being a friend of Johnny, Peter did for some time. Number 3. The Iron Spider. Besides the next two suits on this list, Spidey's Iron Spider suit has to be the most recognizable of his costumes. Gifted to Peter by Tony Stark himself for supporting his pro-registration side during the original Civil War storyline, not to mention also revealing his identity to the public, the Iron Spider suit is what you'd come to expect from a Stark design. It is chock full of cutting-edge tech and even bears the iconic colors of Tony's alter ego, Iron Man. While mechanical spider legs in suits became kind of a fad later on in other Spider-Man costumes, this one was the first to set the trend. The suit was also composed of a thin metal plating that could even be bulletproof, something that was previously unheard of in Spider-Man's other suits. This suit also had active cloaking and could retract into a backpack should Spider-Man need to transform quickly back into his street clothes. This suit even had an impact outside of the comic books, not only appearing in many cartoons and video games, but also a style of which appeared not only at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming in the MCU, but also as the primary suit used by Peter in Marvel's Infinity War film. Number 2. The original costume. Well, you can't deny an original. Appearing all the way back in Amazing Fantasy 15, Spidey's original costume has stood the test of time and largely matches the costume worn by the web slinger to this day. The familiar blue and red with the traditional web patterning gets the point across right away. Spider-Man is a spider-themed hero, developed by a young Peter Parker shortly after receiving the radioactive bite that would give him superhuman abilities. The suit was cheap yet functional. The spandex-like material matched Spidey's acrobatic and agile nature, while the wings under his arms gave him added movement when he was in the air. The goggles are a plastic-like material that allowed Peter to see out, but prevented anyone from seeing in, further protecting his secret identity, something that has been a huge part of Peter's code since he first started his crime-fighting career. The suit also came with a utility belt that held a number of technological gadgets designed by Peter himself, such as added web fluid, a light, and spider tracers that allowed him to track down adversaries who were making an escape. It is this costume, as it was drawn by Steve Ditko, that acted as the template for Heroes to Come and set the tone for Spidey stories for the next half-century. Number 1. The black costume. Well, if you hadn't guessed it already, the number 1 spot is taken by Spidey's black symbiote costume, which first appeared in Marvel's Secret War event. Since being introduced, this suit has taken on a life of its own, literally. After receiving it on Battleworld, the intergalactic staging ground for the massive original Secret Wars event, Peter later brought the costume back to Earth, where he discovered that it was actually a living alien symbiote. While wearing the symbiote, all of Peter's physical traits were enhanced, increasing his already impressive strength and agility, as well as giving him organic web shooters. The costume could also transform itself into a number of outfits, allowing Peter to change into street clothes at any point. Eventually, however, it was discovered that the alien suit had somewhat negative intentions, attempting to corrupt Spidey and causing him to take on a darker persona. And occasionally dancing like this. Maybe we won't talk about that. With the help of Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, Peter discovered that one of the symbiote's weaknesses was sound, which he was able to exploit, allowing him to ditch the costume. After first getting rid of the black costume, Peter would later go back to wearing it a few times, although not a living version, when his life had taken a darker turn. Ultimately, the thing that makes the black costume so cool, and the reason it takes the number 1 spot on our list, is that it had a huge impact on the Marvel Universe, becoming a character of its own while still having its original, simplified yet unique appearance all of these years. So that's our top 10 list. And with the amazing number of alternate reality Spider-Men, different costumes, and different timelines, I'm sure there's some that you wish were on this top 10. So let us know down in the comments. Also, this entire week we are uploading gameplay of Marvel's new Spider-Man PS4 exclusive, so definitely check that out. As always, thank you for watching. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel so you can catch all of the new top 10s, gameplays, and podcasts that we are uploading every single day. This is Riley, signing off, and we'll see you in the next one.